At my mother's birthday dinner, my father yelled, "You'll always come second to your sister." And the room went quiet in that way, where you can actually hear your own heartbeat in your ears. I remember gripping my fork so hard my knuckles turned white, my throat burning like I had swallowed fire, while my mom stared at her cake like it was some kind of funeral, altar instead of a celebration. I felt every eye turn toward me, waiting to see what I'd do, whether I'd cry, explode, or pretend it didn't hurt. Tell me honestly, if your own father looked you in the eye on a night meant to celebrate your mom and said that, would you have stayed quiet? Or would you have snapped like I eventually did? Because what happened next changed everything in my family, and I still don't know whether I was the hero or the villain. My story really starts long before that dinner, though back when I was still trying to pretend everything was normal. Growing up, there were always two of us, me, the older one by 3 years, and my sister, the golden child. That's not even me being dramatic. Teachers loved her. Neighbors adored her. Family would show up at our house and immediately ask, "Where's your sister?" before even saying hi to me. And the worst part was that, at first I didn't mind. I actually loved her deeply. I was the big sibling, the one who carried her backpack, who stood between her and bullies, who helped her finish projects the night before they were due. I thought that was my role, and that love would make it worth it. But slowly things shifted. It was like every success I had was automatically downgraded. If she wasn't somehow involved, if I got a B+, it was good. If she got a B+, it was amazing and deserved pizza night. When I made the school team, my dad congratulated me but then said, "Maybe next year your sister can join too. Then it'll really be something." I kept swallowing the feeling, like a bitter pill, telling myself it was just my imagination or sibling rivalry, that maybe I was just insecure, that I shouldn't complain. My mom always tried to smooth things over, saying, "You know how your father is. He doesn't mean it." But it still hurt. By the time I hit my late teens, it felt like I had become this background character in my own life. My dad's conversations with me were always transactional. Grades, chores, expectations. With my sister, he'd laugh, joke, plan trips, dream with her aloud about her future, as if the world was a buffet laid out just for her. When I told him I wanted to study something creative instead of something practical, he sighed and said, "We already have one child to worry about. Don't make things harder." My sister would sit there quietly, sometimes guilty, sometimes oblivious, sometimes soaking in the attention. I can't even completely blame her. She learned what worked in our family. Then my mom's health took a dip in her late 40s. Nothing fatal, but scary enough. Fatigue, stress, and this look in her eyes like she was constantly apologizing to the world. She worked long hours and still tried to make home feel warm. Her birthday that year meant something to her. I could tell. She bought her own dress. She baked part of her own cake because she didn't want to bother anyone. She even practiced smiling in the mirror. I caught her once, like she wanted at least one night to feel appreciated. I decided to plan something nice. Dinner at her favorite restaurant, a place she had always mentioned, but never gone to because it was too expensive. I saved up for months. I talked to the restaurant staff, arranged a small customized cake, set up a slideshow on the TV there with pictures of her, not as mom, but as herself, young, laughing, strong. The idea was simple, one night where she mattered. But as the day approached, all I heard from my dad was complaints. "Why there? It's over the top. Your sister has exams, we should consider her schedule." That last line hit like a punch. It was always about her. Always. On the actual night, I got to the restaurant early to make sure everything was perfect. My mom arrived, surprised, genuinely touched. Her eyes watered when she saw the pictures. She hugged me a little longer than usual and whispered, "You didn't have to." My dad sat down with that tight-lipped expression he gets when he feels out of control. My sister walked in late, scrolling on her phone, barely glancing up. Dinner started off okay. Small talk, awkward laughter. I kept trying to make my mom laugh. At one point, she relaxed, really relaxed. And I felt like maybe, for once, I had done something right. Then the waiter brought out the cake. They dimmed the lights. Everyone clapped softly. My mom looked like she was glowing, and that's when it happened. My dad looked at the cake, then at me, then at my sister, and said, almost jokingly but loud enough for the whole table, and probably the next one to hear, "Well, enjoy it, dear. But you know, in this house, everything still revolves around your sister. That's just how it is. Some people are born special. Some come second." He actually laughed. My sister fidgeted, half smiling, half embarrassed. My mom froze, that glow draining from her face, and I just sat there like the world had cracked open beneath me. I thought he was done, but he doubled down, turning toward me, eyes narrowing like he was delivering some life lesson I should be grateful for. "You'll always come second to your sister. That's reality. Accept it and you won't get hurt." The words echoed. I felt 12 years old again. I felt like I was shrinking into nothingness. My face burned. The restaurant felt silent. Anger, humiliation, grief, all mixed together. And yes, in that moment I snapped. "Before I tell you what I did, I want to ask you, be honest, if your own parent told you to accept being permanently second place, right in front of everyone, would you swallow it to keep the peace? Or would you finally say something? Because that's the exact crossroads I was standing at. Okay, here's what happened. Instead of yelling immediately, I actually stood up. My hands were shaking. My voice at first was weirdly calm. I looked at my mom and said, "This night was supposed to be about you." Then I turned to my dad. I told him years of swallowed pain in one breath. How I felt erased. How every accomplishment of mine had to be filtered through comparison. How every decision I wanted to make had to fit around what my sister wanted. I brought up moments I had buried. The time he forgot to come to my award ceremony because he took my sister shopping. The vacation he canceled because my sister didn't feel like going, even though I'd been looking forward to it all year. The nights he told me not to make noise studying because my sister needed sleep, as if my dreams were somehow louder and less worthy. My voice cracked, but I kept going. People were staring. My dad's face went from annoyed to shocked to angry. He muttered, "You're being dramatic." That set something off inside me. I said, "No, you've been dramatic my whole life. Dramatic about how fragile she is. Dramatic about how ordinary I am. Dramatic about making sure I know where I stand. Tonight is my mom's night, and even here, you tried to center her, not because she asked, but because you can't stand not having a favorite." My sister finally spoke up. "I didn't ask for any of this," she said quietly. And I looked at her and said, "I know. But you benefited from all of it." The waiter stood frozen with plates, unsure whether to interrupt. My mom started crying. Not loud, not attention-seeking. Just silent tears sliding down her face. She whispered to my dad, "Why would you say that tonight?" And he, incredibly, shrugged and said, "Because it's true." That was the moment I realized something inside. Our family had been broken for a long time, and I had been trying to fix it with silence. I took a deep breath and made a choice. I told my dad I was done chasing his approval. I said I would no longer tolerate being treated like an understudy in a play I didn't audition for. I pulled the bill toward me. I had planned to pay anyway. He reached to stop me out of pride, and I pushed his hand away. "You don't get to buy this and pretend you gave her a nice night," I said. "This is my gift." Then I turned to my mom and said, "You deserve to feel like you're first at least once." And here's the part that surprised even me. I asked him to leave. I said, "If you can't sit here without disrespecting me and Mom, go home." He stared at me like I had grown horns. My sister whispered, "Dad, maybe we should just go." He slammed his napkin on the table, muttered something about ungrateful children, and walked out. My sister followed after a second, torn between loyalty and discomfort. The restaurant felt eerily calm afterward. My mom and I sat there quietly while the candles burned down. She reached across the table, held my hand and said, "I'm so sorry. That broke me more than anything." I told her she had nothing to apologize for. We finished our meal in a sort of peaceful sadness. On the drive home, I expected everything to explode. Instead, there was silence. The aftermath over the next few days was messy. My dad didn't talk to me for a week, then sent me a long message about respect, hierarchy, and how parents should never be confronted in public. He said I had humiliated him. I wrote back, shaking again, and told him, "I didn't humiliate you. Your words did." My sister texted, saying she hadn't realized how bad it felt for me. We talked, really talked, for the first time ever. She admitted she always sensed she was the favorite, but felt trapped by it too. Like she couldn't fail without disappointing him twice as much. My mom silently started setting boundaries. She called him out more. She stopped brushing things off with, "That's just how he is." My dad, stubborn as always, tried to pretend everything was fine. but something had changed. He had lost the illusion of being unquestionable. Family gatherings became awkward, but they also became more honest. Months passed. Therapy happened, for me, then reluctantly for my parents. He never fully apologized the way I wanted, but he did say, one day, "I didn't realize how deeply you took those things." It wasn't perfect. It wasn't wrapped in a bow, but it was something. And even if nothing else changes, I changed. I stopped defining my worth by how loudly someone else clapped. So that was the situation I was in that night, standing between my own pain and my mother's dignity. And I had to make a choice. Before I told you everything that happened after I stood up to my father, I wanted you to pause and think. Would you have done the same thing, or would you have stayed quiet to keep the family peace? Because sometimes keeping the peace is just keeping the problem hidden. Looking back now, the climax of that night wasn't me shouting or him storming out. It was me finally choosing myself, and choosing my mom. The days after were filled with arguments, phone calls, long messages, and moments where I wondered if I'd gone too far. But slowly, something like respect, maybe not from my dad, but from myself, began to grow. I realized that love doesn't mean letting someone shrink you. It doesn't mean accepting permanent second place. It means saying, though, this hurts, even when your voice trembles. As for my mom, she told me later that it was the first time in years she felt someone stood up for her, not just around her. And weirdly, things with my sister actually improved. Without the favoritism being this invisible elephant in the room, we could finally see each other as actual people. I won't pretend everything is healed. Families are complicated and words linger. Sometimes I still hear his voice in my head. You'll always come second. But then I remember that on that night, in front of everyone, I refused to believe it anymore. And that matters. If you were on my side while listening to this, if you think I did what I had to do, like this video, if you want more real, messy, honest stories like this, subscribe. And let me know in the comments what you would have done if you were in my shoes, or if you've ever been the second in your own family. Thanks for sticking with me through this whole mess. I'll see you all in the next story.